Before we get started with what I'm going to be talking about today, I want to talk about one thing first off. I wasn't about to talk before. That last song we spoke about, the last one we just sang, that is such a vital and such a relative song to what we've been talking about. We've been talking about overcoming trials and how do we do that and how does God help us through it. And that song, Waymaker, is absolutely perfect. Because number one, it reveals that we are broken. It reveals that we are vulnerable and we have something that needs to be overcome. Number two, it reveals that God is working in us and working through us. And number three, it reveals that He is always there no matter what. Even though we're broken, even though we don't see it, even though we don't feel it, God is working and He is moving in our lives. And for me, listening to the worship team is amazing. I like listening to music, it's really good. But the part I hear is not them. I hear you guys. Because everyone here comes from somewhere broken. Everyone here has troubles in their lives. And yet when you're singing that song, you're acknowledging that. You're acknowledging there's a God who's out there, who's willing to help you. And you acknowledge the fact and trust Him. And I love hearing you guys yell that out. Like it's an anthem that we sing. Strong, bold. We don't have to fear anything. Love it. Alrighty. So, let's start off with what we learned this morning. Who did we talk about this morning? The prisoners. Does anyone know what her name was? Gladys Howard. We're talking about Gladys Howard this morning. Was she accepted by the Missionary Society? No. And why did they accept her? She was too weak, too frail. They didn't think she would make it. Did she make it? No. She did. Even though people told her she wasn't going to be able to do it, she wasn't strong enough, that she didn't have the skills or the talent, the abilities overcame, she did. And so, what did she do when she got back to England? She told her story. Does anyone know what it's called when you tell your story? Testimony. When you share your story about your relationship with Christ and how God has worked in you and what He's working in you, it's called a testimony. Testimony is meant to show other people that people like us can do it, and so can they. How many people here become afraid when they're in the face of a problem? When something comes up, like a tribulation or a test, how many people get afraid? I get afraid when a trouble or situation comes up. I am afraid. How many people here wish they could be like David, bold and fearless in the face of danger because he trusted in God? How many people wish they were like that? I do. How many people wish they were like Paul and Silas, not worrying and having joy in their circumstances because they believed in the God who was helping them? I do. How many people wish they were like Job, trusting God even when it looks down and at the bottom and when the worst gets handed to you? How many wish they were like that? I wish I was like that. But each hero in the Bible, each one that we look up to, say, I wish I was like that. I wish I was like that guy. I wish I was that guy. Each one had problems. Each one had their own doubts. Each one sinned and made mistakes. And yet, they overcame and did what God had planned for them. David was just a little boy. He was just a shepherd boy. And yet, God made him bold and fearless. Paul and Silas were just regular men. And yet, they were given the power of being content and not worrying, having no anxiousness through God, and they're trusting in Him. Job was just a regular man, just like anyone else, a farmer. And yet, he had trust in God that was unwavering. He wasn't going to move. Even though he had doubts and fears, it never moved, and he believed, he trusted in God. Each one of us here makes mistakes. Each one of us here has fears and doubts about ourselves, about our situations, sometimes even about God Himself. And yet we still have the power to overcome. Even though we make mistakes, God will still love us, but never stops loving us. We may doubt ourselves. God doesn't. He believes in us. He trusts us. But something we can't break. Each one of those people in the Bible, when you read about their Bible story, that is their testimony. It says where they came from, their problems, their mistakes. And it tells you how they overcame, what they had to do, and how God worked through that. Each of us has a testimony of our life and our relationship with Christ. Now, over the last week, I've told you testimonies of people in the Bible, and I've told you testimonies of people long ago. Today, I'm going to tell you my testimony. 8 years ago, I had to go through the passing of my parents. That was very hard. The hardest part was younger. The hardest part was watching my cousins go through that. That was something I could not do without God. There was a lot of pain I saw. There's a lot of hurt I saw. But at the same time, I saw growing and I saw strength. Then, 3 years ago, my one cousin, my best friend from childhood, passed away. And through that, I also saw even more pain and more grief. But at the same time, I saw strength. I saw family come together. That wasn't easy. There was a lot of times I doubted God, and I had struggles going through that. And then last year, I lost my mother. That is something that I'm dealing with today. A month ago, my family moved away. I have 9 siblings, and they are both. And yet, I and God was protecting me. I may feel alone. I may feel afraid. I don't know what's going on. But I trust in God. In every step that God has provided for me, I take it and I trust in Him wholeheartedly. Because I am not strong enough to do it on my own. I'm crying right here. I can't do this on my own. But I have a bodyguard. I have a God who's going to protect me, no matter what. Each time I'm provided with one of these circumstances, one of these hardships, I have to trust God. I have questions, I have doubts, I have fears. I have times where I would yell at God and ask Him why. Because I haven't seen the plan that God asked me. When I ask those questions, when I have those doubts and those fears, I have to tell myself, God, go, you will not know the answer. You may never get an answer for why these things happen, but you're going to trust in God. You're going to put those things behind you, you're going to walk forward. Because being down, being out, doesn't help. There are people who need you. You need to be strong. But I can only be strong through Christ. In each of our lives, we have a choice to make. When we come up to hardships, when we come up to tribulations and tests, are we going to stand strong in the Lord like Job? Or are we going to fall flat on our face and say, I give up. I can't trust anyone. We have that choice to make in our life. And even though I acknowledge the fact that my tests, my trials are not over, I will have more in my life. I also acknowledge the fact that I love a God who will be with me every step of the way. My whole family, if I never see them again, I know I still have a God who is watching over me. I know I still have a God who is going to protect me. No matter what. When we trust in God and ask Him to lead our lives, we acknowledge that God has a plan and we want to be part of it. No longer are we wandering around life saying, what is my purpose on the earth? Why am I here? And you can't find anything interesting. But when you acknowledge that you want to trust God's plan, you have something firm. You have a rock that you can trust. Because God's plan is perfect. His promise to us that He will love us is solid. It will never break. And when we accept that we want to trust God with our life, when we want to follow His plan, then we have a purpose. And then we have a mission. When we trust God has a plan, our mission then is to follow that plan, to trust God with that plan, and to share to others that God has a plan. To other people who don't understand that God has a plan, we need to let them know, hey, you're going through a hard thing. I understand. But guess what? God has a plan for your life. We need to be encouragers to other people. It isn't always easy. But when we trust God, He will bring us through those trials. Because we know that after a test, good results come. If we choose to trust in Him. In each of our lives, we have that choice. And trust Him for that purpose. There is a verse in the Bible, it's one of the memory verses, that I have to tell myself every day. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, I'm going to tell myself this every day. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. You guys are memorizing this earlier today. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. When we acknowledge Him, He will make our paths straight. Because then we are following God's plan. Then we're going to be in the wilderness. If we choose to not listen to God's plan and do the opposite, then we have nothing to trust in. There's nothing else in this world we can trust in but God. Each one of you here may go home tomorrow. You may have hardships at home. You may have trials or tests, whatever it is, big or small. It could be the smallest things ever. But sometimes they feel like the biggest problems ever. So when you go home and you face those things, I want you to remember that even though it's hard, even though it seems unbearable, why would God do this to me? Even though it may feel like that, I want you to remember He has a plan for you. He has a plan for each one of us. And His plan leads to good. His plan leads to a life of everlasting non-pain. There will be no pain. It will be perfect. He wants us to be in heaven with Him. When we follow God's plan, that is the end goal, is to be in heaven with God. No pain, no suffering. Everything will be perfect. I'll be able to go and play wide games all night long and never feel pain after that. I'll be able to see properly again. That would be miraculous. I will never cry again. I will never have sadness or anger or frustration or anxiety or worry. All those things will be gone for eternity. I can't even describe to you what eternity is, because I don't know what it looks like. But the idea of eternity being absolutely bliss, knowing God, seeing Him face to face, being able to worship the guy who has a plan for my life, I'm going to be so happy. So I'm going to trust God's plan, because it will eventually lead me there. And I encourage each one of you to follow that plan, to trust God in that. If you have questions, supposed to do? Or how do you ask God for this? Talk to your leaders. Talk to the program staff. Talk to me. We'll help you. This is why we are here. This is why we're at camp for you guys. So don't be afraid to come to us. Even if you have questions, any questions at all, come to us. We are here to answer your questions and we'll be there for you. I encourage you to study, think about, contemplate. Even when you go home, even though you may not be able to find the answer sometimes from people, go to God. Pray to Him. Read the Bible. Study Him so you can know Him more. So you can find out more about the person that you want to trust. Because that's how we build trust in God, is by knowing more about Him. I encourage you. Dear Father, I thank you for what you have done in each of these kids' lives. Father, even for the smallest things, you still have made them here so that they can hear about you. Lord, I ask that you reveal yourself to each one. Lord, I ask that you would open up their hearts so that way they'd be able to understand, Father, and that they would be able to want you more, Father. Lord, for the kids here who are going to go home and not be able to learn about you, Father, have a hard time, Lord, I ask that you would provide for them, Lord. Help them to be able to find ways to learn more about you, whether it be through reading the Bible or through other people